Hey everybody, Texas Trucker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. I don't even know what to do here. We're just going to try to shed some light on it and walk you through what I think is my logic. We're going to do that right now. So sitting here on this spring steel rail haphazardly are some Jumbo Proto sockets, right? This is part of a big set we bought a while back. These don't really have a home. If you go with a typical 18-inch rail, or if we run the MTS stuff, you kind of run out of real estate, right? We might be able to fit one of them, but basically for me, especially at work, inch and an eighth is going to be where it's at. Sometimes you have like a heavy 3/4, you need inch and a quarter, but inch and an eighth and down. These are sort of bonus sockets, and these have been in the US General here at the house. I've actually found that it's better to store them like this. That way I don't have any issues with them turning over or anything. And what I have here to the side is this, and I really do like it, especially for big impact sockets, right? Of course, the US General, if you're unfamiliar here at the house, we did something different, something you don't usually see. We've got orange for SAE, we've got green for metric. Works well for me. I like it. Something a little different aesthetically, right? This is pre-populated for some of these Proto sockets, and in fact, if we run over here, you'll see there's some extra real estate. We're gonna real quick come in. Just end to end on this thing is about 22 3/4. And that creates a bit of a problem if you're trying to maximize and optimize the use of the top of your US General MasterTech. On the sides, you know, going this way, we can run basically an 18-inch Ernst socket boss. We can run maybe the 3/8 one of these, don't hold me to that, but these you could totally run lengthwise if I'm not mistaken. It's just a situation then where they creep forward and that impacts what you can do on the sides. Again, it's all a real complicated mess without like custom stuff, which of course we've been doing. But long story short, I love this rail, again, especially for huge sockets. You know, 3/8, I'm sorry, but 3/8, 7/16 half, probably up through 3/4. On an Ernst system, you're going to be able to see that label, you know, just fine. You start to get bigger, you know, 15/16, particularly inch and up, the sockets just dwarf, right, the label. You know, if you've got it at the right angle, or if you can kind of bend or whatever, you can overcome that. But this is just so much better for ginormous stuff. Now, if this was like a quarter drive socket set up through, you know, 9/16 or 14-15 millimeter, no issues at all with Ernst stuff or anything similar with labeling of that style. This would almost be overkill in those cases. Very nice, but a little on the excessive side. You know, by all means, do it if you want it, but it works beautifully with ginormous sockets, like I just showed you. Case in point, let's just set this down, and I'm going to grab an inch and 3/16. Okay, and if I throw this over here on the last peg, I know it's not coordinated, but even then, that gets occluded just a little bit. But if you had top down, you're screwed. But this front lip, what kind of sets these rails apart, you can see that. And again, even here with this big of a label, this nice of a large font, it's occluded a little bit, right? Not ideal. However, if I grab this heavy thing, set it down, this is what we're currently rocking for our SAE set. This is on a standard. We have not modified this in any way, shape, or form. Shocking, I know. We've got our shallows, we've got our deeps. This is essentially very close to the same thing. Shallow, we start at 7/16. These are Wrights. This is just the way they do it. It runs up through inch and a quarter. That might actually be their default set. I think this is the full complement of Wright. 1/2-inch shallows. Here in the back, this again was a super expansive Proto set. It actually continues on to these Jumbo sockets I've shown you. It had one size smaller at 3/8. Again, you can't really see that. It's over here. Take my word for it. And this fits this way, like running towards the back. If you're standing here at the front of the MasterTech, going back, this 18-inch socket boss fits. If I line them up over here and I pull this up, you can see the difference. That does not fit. The other thing, it sucks to almost waste these. I don't want to say complete waste, because where they shine, of course, is in a situation like this. If I can slide this forward, it's kind of hard on the rubber mat and with the tripod here. But looking down, like, I mean, that is glorious socket recognition, right? Especially if we get that zoomed a little better for you. That's awesome. That is like the bee's knees. However, if we clock that 90 degrees to run this way, you can still see it. You can turn your head, but it's not ideal, right? You're kind of fighting the ideal. Right here, case in point with these Wrights. I'm not sure you can tell, but you can see the label. It's going to be the white font you see until we get here, and I can see it. I think you can actually see that, but you don't see it here at all, okay? This is 3/4 down. 3/4 down, boom. This setup's still great. 13/16 and up, it's totally occluded. And you're like, you don't even have labels on there. Oh, you do, right? If we zoom in right there, you're going to see the 13/16, right? So I've been fighting these problems, right? It's not really problems, it's like luxury problems, but it bothers me. These are things that keep me up at night. I think, wow, what's the best way to optimize this? And one of the things, especially for the OCD people, is going to be fixed with this tool haul. We're kind of combining this. It's a tool haul plus a dilemma, if you will. And what we've done, this set would retail for around $240, kind of depending on your vendor. We got some sweet discounts. We landed this thing for sub 200 and everything. Like, sub 200, what on earth would that be? Well, it's kind of a two-part deal here. If I rip it out of this box, set this down, some of you will instantly know based on the rails. This is a Wright 1/2-inch drive impact socket set. It's going to mirror and complement what we have here in the shallows. And if you think, okay, well, you don't need two deeps, do you? No, we don't. And the Protos are going to work. At work, I've just run the shallows all this time. It's usually not too big of a deal, especially when we can come in with other drive sizes. But that's, again, 1/4 to 1 inch on your 3/8 drive sort of takes care of some of those issues. This is going to allow me to keep the Wrights paired up here, and then it's just worked out. We've had fantastic deals on Proto sockets time after time, and the work box, and again, the intention there, the problem I have with that, a lot of what work has is Proto, and you think, oh, well, okay, you must not like it. No, I love it. I have zero complaints about it. The issue is I like to try and differentiate my stuff, right? Like, let's say that work was running all Milwaukee everything. If I'm coming in bringing my own stuff, I might want DeWalt or Makita just so it's different, just so it stands out, right? Similarly, if I was ever like, okay, hey, the Protos are getting a little long in the tooth, I'm going to combine two sets. That'll get me one good functional set that's not worn and will actually stay on the anvil of the impacts. And then we're going to come in and we're going to like mix the Wrights up, see what I'm missing, buy individual sockets and have that here. And then this area is going to get, I don't know, we'll throw Tecton at it or something. I would prefer to then come in and have Koken impacts, right? Or just something different. And the reason for that then is things ever cross-pollinate, and walk from here to here. My stuff is a known commodity, right? If everything at work is red, I'm coming in with green, and it's like, hey, no. Get that back over here. Why did you take it? And again, not even just personal stuff, but just like station things. Nothing ticks me off more. I'm sure many of you are the same way. When you're at your place of work, and you have a task, and you turn around to do it, and you can't, because there's not a tool where it's supposed to be. This happens all the time to me. Customers are there, and I've got to like break something down in front of them and showcase a deal, and I cannot find a 7/16 wrench. And there's supposed to be not one, but two right where I'm looking. And I don't know where they went, because I'm, if I was the one and I was tearing something else down to repair, and I had one sitting on top of a motor, and I had another one over here on the tail, I would know. I'm like, oh yeah, I left that over there. I don't know I don't even know who did it to know what, okay, let me trace their steps and figure out what they would have been doing. Oh, it's at the drill press. No, I have no clue. You look stupid. It's inefficient. It's not professional. And there's people that either get that and appreciate it and want it reciprocated. Same thing. Like if I'm there and then boom, it's my lunch hour, or, freight truck comes or something and they're looking for the 9/16, I want them to be able to find it. The place needs to function smoothly. And that's one of the many reasons, especially just the expanse, like where I do a lot of my parts of work, it was a pain, right? It was like multiple 50-foot runs of an air hose and less than ideal. And so enter the work bag, and then a cart, got brought in, and it's just sort of evolved from there. But the bottom line is, when you look at it that way, it could even be if you're a mechanic at a dealership and, everyone loves Snap-on and you don't have a Mac guy anymore and the Matco guy's flaky on the other side of town, where he's, picking up more payments. If you all come in and have a red ratchet, okay, if everyone's favorite color is red, you're going to have a hard time telling them apart. So if you want to avoid that, if everyone else is like, nope, it's my favorite color too, Randy, you change. They're sitting there arguing amongst themselves. If you're just the person that's like, okay, hey, I'll just take the green, it's fine. Another coworker of yours might be like, okay, nobody's claimed high-vis, that's my stuff now. And it works out, right? That's why you constantly hear me complain about a lack of color options, especially on the quote-unquote professional end. It's not just a preference and aesthetic, that you prefer. From a management perspective, or just a looking out for yourself perspective, it goes a long way. You might not even like high-vis, but if no one else has it, that protects you and it protects your investments. And it's going to stand out, and you're like, hey, nope, I don't know why you borrowed that without asking, get it back over here type of a deal. And just looking past the individual aspect, if you look at this as you were a manager or the shop foreman and you're tasked with managing the tool room, or you have to manage the inventory or the tools or something, your life is much easier if you can dumb it down to the point of color coding things. And when that's not an option, like, well, I can't come in here and get custom powder coating from Wright and they're going to be blue, and then the Protos are going to be red, and then we're going to throw down some coking that I'm going to have coated. No, you can't really. I guess you could, it's going to come off, but if you can just go by brand, right? If we come in and this area is Proto, this area is Wright, and then over there we throw Sun-X with huge laser etching, just something to make your life a little easier to discern quickly. That's not where it's supposed to be. I've located it. Why was it here? Let's correct it. Don't ever do that again, Charlie, type of a thing. Again, I know a lot of people don't have to think about that, but as you climb a ladder, if you want to take those opportunities and move up, or, it might just be that you've gotten older, and they're like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. We're going to let him manage stuff and not break his back anymore. There'll come a day where it will be the bane of your existence. And if you're working solo at your own gig, doing your own thing, that is massive peace of mind. There's so many factors, so many ailments, so many little minor things that collectively add up that you don't ever have to deal with. People really don't appreciate that unless they've been in those situations and then go solo. And then that's one of the many reasons they went solo, and it's also why, even with a lot of money, I know a lot of electricians this way, they get offers all the time, and they're like, nope, I'm not going back for that. They'll work for you, but if you want to hire them, nope, doing my own thing on my own dime, on my own time. And you're not going to change that guy. They've been there, they've done that, they know what they prefer. Maybe they're leaving money on the table, but the peace of mind, the extra free time, whatever combination of things, it's worth it. So where that all comes back to me is the unfortunate fact the Proto just sort of happened. Granted, when I say there's Proto at work, it's like 95% impact. So the chrome sockets I'm golden on. Also, mine are the newer ones, so they still have the black coating. They don't look like worn chrome sockets. That's also a slight perk. But it's one of those deals, man. I almost wish that I'd have done the Wrights, but then at the same time, everything just fell into place that way. So I'm just going to make do. And that brings us back to this stuff, where I actually have a couple of MTS Lock-a-Socket rails, just like you see back here, that are blue that would go really, really well with the cart at work. I'd need some labels. They didn't always send the spares like they were supposed to, if you recall back to those hauls. But the problem is to fill that out and to replicate it, like, I don't know what Carlyle and Napa are doing. Those prices, just even the last like 2 to 3 years, have gone bonkers. And I know they have big sales. They'll take like 60% off frequently and everything, but they're still very high prices. The 60% off almost makes it like a price where it should be, you know, at least in my opinion. And so I'm kind of like, you know, we've got that. If you recall what I did, you know, blindly hoping this would work, I didn't just buy these Lock-a-Sockets, you know, quarter, 3/8 and a half. I bought like the cheaper one, and my glorious plan, you know, behind the scenes is like, I'm really going to take these pegs and I'm going to get the spare sets from the other rails, and I'm going to populate the cheap one. And you can't, they don't interchange. Yeah, no, you know, learned that one the hard way. But I'm considering taking those. I've got a whole drawer in the US General over here, 44-inch, that's like unused socket, you know, like organizers and stuff from stuff we didn't use, or stuff that I'm like, well, I'm going to use that at some point in time. I kind of like that drawer for other things. So if I can clear it out and also put stuff that I've paid for and like get it functionally used, that's a win for me. So I'm kind of torn on this. This was bought with every intention of staying in the US General. I've got the 3/8 and 1/2-inch swivels on these, again color-coded orange and green. MTS, this is direct from MTS. They do black, they do red, they do orange, they do green. They don't do blue. You literally are going to have to go through Napa or Carlyle to pick that up, which is unfortunate. If you looked around, maybe you'd find somebody else rebranding it. Snap-on uses these. Again, they don't do blue. It's kind of a sad, it's kind of crazy that blue is not included and you've got orange and green as options, but that's just the way things panned out somehow. So I'm debating taking this and putting it, like, I really like it. I don't know that I would love it in a blue thing, but they're kind of complementary colors, right? Green and blue, orange and blue. Obviously the blue is going to look fine together. I'm kind of thinking about just taking these and trying them, if nothing else, at work. Again, they would be the huge Protos that you see here. They have the same issue as the Wrights. They're just going to occlude these labels. So that's where we stand there. Again, this is stuff, you know, some of you may come across these issues like, man, you know, I bought all this stuff and then I wound up loving Ernst, but I want to use that stuff. It was expensive. Got it on sale, waited for deals, but man, like, I've got, you know, $18 in that thing, and I should have it functional. Do you just go buy junk sockets to fill it up? No, you kind of want it, you know, practical across the board. So what I'm going to do is open these up. We'll compare the Wrights versus the Protos. Then we're going to ditch the Protos from the Ernst socket box. We're going to populate them on the MTS rail, and then we're going to put the Wrights onto the Ernst socket boss. So I'll be kitted out here at the house with Wrights, and then again I'll have some deeps at work finally, so I don't have to go bum from station 3. So I put stuff back, you know, I at least put stuff back. So yeah, give me a second here, we'll get this opened up, we'll showcase everything, we'll take it from there. Alright, so screw it, I went ahead, I've got the Wrights freed up, we've moved the Protos back. And the Wrights, I think I forgot to mention, the part number is 407 if you want to replicate this set. They do come on their own rails. They're decent. They're better than spring steel, in my opinion. Not my cup of tea, but you essentially have got 2, 4, 6, 8 on the small rail, and then you've got 3, 6 big sockets on the other rail. Again, the equidistant on the sizes. Just 8 versus 6 is your spread there. And what I want to do is come in, and if I tilt this down, again, you can beautifully see this. We're going to grab the 11/16, because we don't use it. We're going to grab this brand new Wright 11/16, which should be, I'm thinking it's a second, yeah, second from the end here, if we can get it off. And we're going to do a little comparison. Let me get the oil off of this sidewall here. And the Wrights do come well oiled most of the time. And yeah, this will be an apples to apples comparison because again, they're both 1/2 inch drive, they're both deep, and they're both 11/16. So this hand right here with the orange in the stamping is going to be the Proto. This one right here in my other hand is going to be the Wright. You can see overall length are going to be dang near even. In terms of the finish out, if you look like you see the machining right there, you can kind of feel it too. This is a rougher texture, but you also don't see the finish work, if you will, as much. Both have good stamping. The Wright, again, I've said it every time I've seen a Wright socket, it's my favorite. It's just large, it's very visible, even though there's no contrast to it here. It's also a font that I personally like. I could see some people objecting and maybe you prefer your 6 in this style or something, but to me, every number I've ever looked at has been good. Coming in again, you got your part number, your standalone there if you need to reorder. You got Wright USA, again, no laser etching, no other markings or identifications. Proto, pretty much the same, just not quite as shallow. They basically come up above the hole and they've got all of your information here. Proto Professional, size stamping, so on and so forth. Right there, this is a good look down the throat. You've got the well is going to be recessed here on the Proto. Some people like that. It's primarily a situation like, let's say that we had a stud and we were taking the nut off. That's going to nest right there. It's not going to go down any farther. Now, sometimes that's convenient, you know, especially like if it was real cruddy and greasy or nasty or scale, rust, what have you. That's going to be right there. If you've got threads or you've just got pliers or a screwdriver, you can probably come in and catch a thread, get the nut out much easier than if it sinks all the way down to the bottom of a well. On the flip side, and this is kind of the camp I tend to believe in, if I need to do something here, this is going to give me a little bit greater throw, if you kind of catch my drift, right? Like, let's say that we are, I don't know, we'll just say cobbling together the front accessory drive on a 440 Dart. Okay, it's some hodgepodge swap. You got it running, but the alternator's junk. All right, you found out the hard way. So there you are. If you've got this socket and you've got a long threaded rod and you're trying to run this down, we're going to hit a point where we have a good chunk of real estate that's not going to be happy, right? You're trying to run this over and we're going to get to a point where maybe it's a divided stud, you know, so you've got thread here and then none here. You could potentially bottom this thing out, whereas with this you can kind of keep running it down a bit more. Again, there's trade-offs. Probably what you have on hand is going to be what you would prefer you didn't. It's just how things like that go. But that is worth noting. Again, it's personal preference for a lot of people, and I think if you come in across the board, Wright sort of has them broached similarly, up through 5/8. It looks like 11/16 might be where they kind of ditch the basket. Sort of the same thing here. This 5/8, and it's not necessarily a shallow well. I think it's just their finish out, to be honest with you. The Proto was intentional and by design. You know, if we had a nut here, you would see that thing catch. You would see the nut here sink to the bottom. You can think of it as a well. So, case in point, what would we stab this in? How about that? Here I am trashing 11/16, which I do use sometimes, mainly chrome sockets, but this little coupler that I grabbed, I was like, what's something weird I would have that might fit? Oh yeah, look at this. So right here, this, it's not going to go any further. This isn't me being nefarious and holding it. Like, listen close. We've hit the wall, or if you will, like the bottom of the well. Center section keeps going down, you know, maybe like threads could pass through there. This is not. Some people prefer, they're like, cool, I can extract that easily. And you're like, easily as opposed to what? Well, as opposed to this. Okay. Now this is pristine, you know, coupling. You're not going to have much of an issue there. Now let's throw this on a 440A body that was built by Charlie at the trailer park, right? And then he's hot rodded it, he's had it in a demo derby, he's drag raced it, and then it sat outside neglected for 2 years. This isn't going to be pristine, right? It's going to have corrosion. It's going to have crud. It might have mud. Maybe he took it to the river too. Well, here's the deal. When you run this in, well, now this is not coming out, and you're going to have to come in here and you're going to have to find a little punch or a screwdriver and you're going to have to hammer that thing free. whereas the Proto with the well is going to hold it at a taller height, right? Again, it's personal preference plus whatever situation you're in, and I'm so proud that we have that sitting there, because otherwise I would have had to come in here. I've got a 3/8 stainless bolt, so we'd need 9/16 socket. If we come in here to the Proto, I think you can hopefully see this. I will tell you, I'm a much bigger fan of the twist lock action on Ernst than MTS. That one just seems to have more play. This is the same thing. This is a Proto socket, evidenced by the orange. And it's got a well, right? If you look down there, you can kind of see where the socket looks like a little silver in there. Boom, there you go. Now that one has been used, but again, concept stands the same. If we come in, this should be the 9/16. This it doesn't really have a well as much as it just isn't finished all the way. So it's going to do a similar thing right now. If we came in and we had, let's just bush this out a little bit, it's going to sink all the way down, right? Hopefully that conveys and makes sense to you about the well and no well. And again, I think Wright 5/8 and down seems to have like a stand, and then 11/16 and up, man, it's just you're going to the bottom of the socket. So could be preferential in some cases, could be detrimental in others, and vice versa. It's never going to be perfect every time. That's again why it's nice to have options. And if you couple Wright and Proto together, you got some really good stuff there. So yeah, back to the socket comparison, ignoring that, in my opinion, and it could just be my eyes playing tricks, we're not going to do anything scientific, scale them, mic them, anything like that, bust out the caliper. I genuinely do believe that the Wright just has a thicker sidewall. I think it's pretty evident there. Both are pretty good. I kind of like the corner, if you will, of the Wright a little bit better. That kind of elongated area there where you see kind of like a half circle. The Proto has that too. It's not as pronounced. What that's going to do is, instead of grabbing on the corners and rounding, it's going to, of course, it's going to let the corner go in there, and then your work on both sockets is going to be applied to the sidewalls of your flats, right? So instead of just twist the corner, you're going to come in here, and that corner is going to sink in here, and then what's going to make contact as you're impacting is this flat sidewall with the flat sidewall of your bolts. So once again, hopefully that transfers over to you decently. And down here, I'll keep them again, Proto, left hand, right hand, makes sense, hopefully. Both are beautifully chamfered. Some people hate that. I love it. Again, I don't need anything encumbering me. A lot of impacts now are friction ring. It's not like it used to be back in the day, and I would much rather have something chamfered and that guides the anvil in than have a flat square and just constantly you got to get it perfectly aligned. And if you have an extended anvil on your gun, you might even have to grab that. Just give me something that's going to guide and auto lock. The easier this process is, the more time it saves, the happier I am, type of a situation. So that's your comparison. You really cannot go wrong with either one of these. If I had to, come in and one of you had to have a set of sockets and I had to give one up, I would give you the Proto. I just personally kind of prefer the Wright Impact Sockets. They're both fantastic. If I had to come in and buy, one set, everything was gone in a tornado, these slugs somehow got picked up and taken from me, I'd love to replace it with the Wrights, but I'm not going to lie, especially, rolling on a budget or something. If the Protos present a better opportunity, especially like if we can go from 3/8 to 1.5 inches as opposed to 7/16 to 1.25 inches, and I can do that for significantly less money than the Wrights, I would have zero qualms about doing that. I might be like, man, I wish I could justify the Wrights, but the Proto's too good of a deal to pass up, and it's going to be a great socket. That's where I would stand. So let me go ahead now and clean these Wrights off. Again, you want to do that anytime something's oiled down. Anything you can do to protect all that time you spent labeling your pegs on your Ernst product is time well spent, in my opinion. So I'm going to wipe them down, get that set up. You'll get to see this, and then we'll kind of clear that space out. We can kind of compare the two aesthetics on that. All right, so bear with me here. First bad news I've got. I didn't get to highlight kind of up here through 9/16, I believe. Again, kind of makes sense with the well. You can see that Wright actually tapers these down. Again, that could be an advantage over, say, the Proto, which is just straight. So essentially this Wright is going to be a wider base down here where it couples to your drive tool. The Proto maintains that same uniform shape all the way. The Wright is going to taper. The Protos actually have a pretty aggressive taper on 3/8 and 7/16, and then they kind of cut it off. Theirs is more of like obviously a machine step there, sort of a bullet point, if you will. Whereas the Wrights, I mean, they really neck these down, so these might get into more areas for you, is something worth noting. The other thing worth noting, the Wrights also do a similar machining strategy when you get into the larger socket sizes. Case in point, I've got the big 1.25" here. You get the idea. It's unnecessary to have that mass there, so they sort of have it step out. The really sad thing is these sidewalls, I was having to move all the pegs down basically from 5/8 forward. That's just a fatter sidewall than the Protos. That actually proves the point. I've since had to scoot them down even more, trying to make room for this slug. It would absolutely fit. The catch is the sidewalls on the Wrights are so thick, they're butting up like this, and they're kind of kicking this one back. So if I have the shallow gone, I can actually nest this 1.25", and it fits beautifully. If I come in and try to place this one, you can see what's happening. It's kicking it out this way since it's now the one that's not placed. My solution might be to kill the 1". I know I have people yell at me all the time, that fits Canon filters. Past that, there's not much I would do with a 1" aside from maybe drive small seals, and we may not need a socket organizer for that end. So that's really the only buzzkill. Pulling the 1" out from shallow, and maybe we could even keep the shallow, but I'm basically trying to then stagger everything and see if we can't get fitment to happen across this socket boss. The Protos there in the back are looking pretty good. Again, we can fully populate out that entire rail. What I want to do now is showcase this. This will kind of be a refresher for me as well. The MTS stuff, okay, it is kind of a special length. It's going to be something you got to know. I don't have the end cap on this one, but again, we'd call that probably 23, we would say. Again, I'm just estimating there's no end cap down there. That is 1/2" drive. This is 1/2" metric. 3/8 I've got right here, and we're going to, again, remember 23. And then look at this. It's going to come in about 18 3/4. So you're shaving off close to 5 inches there. And then right here, I've got a nice little 1/4 inch. This is SAE. And if we measure it end to end, again, I don't have the end cap on. I'd probably say 14.5. So you almost have 10 inches of real estate between 1/4 and between 1/2. If you're like, why don't you have end caps on? What do you even mean an end cap? Well, take a look right there. You can see this plastic piece with a screw in it. And here you don't. You just see blue rail. Here's the end cap. That would tuck in there and basically prevent these from sliding out. However, if you're like, whoa, that's nice, 1/8 through 5/8, that's really cool. And you can space that, you know, but maybe you've got dead space. Here's the point I want to make. This is locked currently. So if I unlock it, I can slide it out. You're like, oh, well, what? Wait, why was a 25 there? Well, the 25 came from up here, the 1/2" one that doesn't have an end cap in. And the way this works, I've showcased this before, but this is your basic system structure. The track and the spacing on these are all the same. I'm going to lock the 25 in place so I don't spill all of those. I'm now going to turn this 5/8 on the 1/4. Should have it free. Should have it free. Should have it free. Come on. There we go. once you get them going, they tend to come off and on a little bit easier. But you're thinking like, okay, well, there's no way that you're going to put a 5/8 quarter drive peg onto this thing that's right beside a 25 millimeter. I mean, a 24 is a huge socket. You're like, wait, you did it, and it fits properly. It didn't fall off. Well, this stuff interchanges, okay? What that means, if you bought a red and a blue SAE quarter and a black metric 1/2 inch, and you wanted to run coconut grips metric and SAE on the same rail, slide out all your 1/2 inch, plug in your quarters, go to town. If you get the idea, right? It's kind of adjustable. This is kind of an unsung point of this, and this is where the story could really have a plot thicken. However, I don't know what it's going to be yet, because I kind of need to play with all this. Obviously at work, I've said it a million times, almost everything is SAE, all right? So this doesn't really mean much to me. I've showcased it before. You can buy these metric or SE. They're supposed to come with the opposing labels. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, which really makes them a great deal. But I might have workarounds to sort of build out and kit out a dream build. So like, for example, right now, that 1/2 inch rail back there that we just put all those Protos on, you know, we could come in and I can slide every single one of these out, and I can slide all those labeled tags in here, and we can make it an SAE rail. Similarly, let's say that I would decide I want orange to be deep and blue to be shallow. So I take this to work, and I can put my shallow Proto 1/2 inch on it and get them off that hideous spring steel rail that doesn't work in that case. The 3/8 ones I've had good luck with. The 1/2 inch one, those are, ooh, that's some of the worst spring steel I've had in years. But what I can do, if I come in and buy these separate labels, I can just pry this off with a screwdriver, and I can turn this 19 into a 3/4. I can turn the 14 into 9/16. I can lift and replace and kind of maintain that. It's all, like I said, it's a pretty sweet setup if you're invested in it. It is spendy unless you know where to look or catch the right deals. But none of these are in use right now. I've kind of kept them over there. I thought, you know what, I'm going to fill this out, and I'm going to put, I won't say my exact plans because we still may wind up doing it. I think it'd be really cool if I did. But I also might just take them to work and get them in use now. And then if I want to fulfill that dream that hasn't happened yet, then we can come in and buy new. But yeah, that's why this is a train wreck. We picked up awesome 1/2 inch drive Wright deep impacts. They're going to stay here at the house in the U.S. General roll cart. The Protos are going to go to work to a roll cart, and we're going to see what we want to do with all these rails. So I'm going to leave it at that. My apologies here. Again, this is kind of stuff you might face, especially, you know, like if you're constantly buying tools or upgrading or trying to upgrade, or just, you know, like, you know, I don't really do as much at home as I do at work. I might switch my stuff out, vice versa. You run into these situations, and it is quite the dilemma. Requires some trial and error. And, my only wish is that, you know, didn't have like the drive in between them to have to go through with everything. But bottom line, I've got some choices. We've got some options. I want to make it cool and functional. Again, the real shining point of this, I love the Socket Boss. I completely am enamored with the system. I like everything about it aside from these two running in together, which means 3/4 drive, you could really have some issues, at least in your larger socket sizes. But here, again, through 15/16, it's pretty good, right? And then 1 inch, it kind of starts to get questionable. 1 1/8, I'd say, is still easily visible if you want to see it. You step up to 1 3/16, and even that's occluded. So here on the Socket Boss, if I rip this out, you can easily see that's 1 inch. You don't see jack right there. It covers it up. That's really the only drawback to the Socket Boss. Again, if you lifted this out and you had it on like a workbench or something, you can probably work around that. I mean, you can kind of see the labels there. But One of the reasons, like on my metric set, the Icon 1/2 inch deep, there's a reason like I come in the frequently used sizes I have inked up with a paint pen. That tells me, like, here's your 10, 13, 14, 17, 19, boom. You know, if I need an 18 for the truck, it's like, well, there's the 19, it's got to be this guy. And it works for me. This is something you'd kind of want to do here to these Wrights, actually, is kind of ink them up here just for visibility's sake. Even with this, the way I would have the halves currently located in the cart would be running, again, clocked. And so while awesome and cool it is to see 17, 18, 19, I'd have to turn it. You can still totally see what it is, but it's kind of a buzzkill, right? So anyway, I'm going to quit rambling. I've got pizza to heat up and maybe the end of the Knicks and Pacers to catch. It's been a pretty good series. It's 2-2 right now. Hopefully I haven't missed it. I'm going to call this good. And again, this is why it's a train wreck. And I don't exactly have any idea how this will pan out and what I'll have at work and what I'll have here in terms of organization stuff. But I want to get started on it. I want to feel it all out. I want to get this stuff that I've bought in use instead of just like closed up, taking up tool space, if you will, in a drawer. So it's going to be a win-win across that front. We'll have some fun. We'll probably learn some different preferences and workarounds, and who knows, I've got some crazy ideas if, you know, push comes to shove. So with that said, I'll leave it at that. What would you do in this situation? How do you handle your big slugs? For some of you, like 1/2 inch, that's not an issue. You might be running, 3/4, 1 inch stuff as your baby sockets. What are you doing, if anything, to organize them? Is it just you have them in there on a spring steel rail, you roll with the Socket Boss? Again, Socket Boss, certain sizes and 1/2 inch down, and everything 3/8 and under. Drive size there. Minus 1 inch plus socket size is like, it's a win across the board. This really does shine with stuff like this and swivels, right? Where it's kind of cumbersome. Maybe you use one a lot and it constantly leans this way or that way. This is max visibility. Again, you've got it there on the back as well. It's magnetic. There's really nice options we've got, and it's just sort of trying to maximize them and have them all shine to their full potential. So with that said, give me your thoughts on this. Let me know what you think. Wright versus Proto, what would you do and why? Is price a factor? Is it just quality? Does it depend on the deal at the time or your needs? If you could have one, it's free of charge, you get to pick which would you take and why. Keep in mind, you can kind of change the set sizes, adjust it to your needs. Both you can pick up if you shred a socket. If you want duplicates, you got something where you have to get front and back type of a thing. Both of them, you can come in by standalone sockets very easily without hassle and for a great price. They're both American made. Again, I have personal experience. I'm talking long tenured experience with both brands. They're both fantastic. It'll be right here at the house, oddly enough, and all Proto at the work card at the moment. So with that said, I'll leave it at that. Again, it's a train wreck. We had some stuff to discuss here. I'm interested to know what you would do organization-wise if you were coupled with this stuff. Would you ditch it all and just get a Hansen tray? Would you throw it in a coffee can that, the lid shuts around and call it a day? Whatever ideas you've got, feel free to throw them out. I'm going to try to come up with something pretty cool, and we'll take it from there. Maybe sometime we'll get to show you the work cart and showcase everything here, how it pans out. But with that said, you know the drill. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts, again, how you'd handle all this stuff. If you have not subscribed, I encourage you to do so. If you do that, you jump your charger across the creek. You've got your Ernst socket boss, your MTS Lock-a-Socket rails. You've got your Hansen trays. You got your coffee cans, your paint pens, your markers, and your stamping set. YouTube just might notify you that we got new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time. With that said, I hope I catch you back here for more action from the shop. I was cleaning up. I wanted to highlight again, this is what the rails look like. If you're interested, those pegs will interchange with a lot of things, whether you want them here, add them, subtract them, use them elsewhere. But again, part number Wright 407, and then all the way over here, gotta shout this out, clock number 440. I hope you're a Mopar person, and thank you for making fantastic sockets.